Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be walking through the analytics required to create reports, specifically to various business units across your organization. Today we're going to walk through what are the basic necessities for creating a report, typically for various sales. So in this case, we're going to start with two very simple data flows or data sets. One can be hat sales, another one being shoe sales. Yes, this is very rudimentary, but it helps to know at a basic level what we're building upon. And then as we move forward in later studies or videos, we can get a better understanding of more detailed level reports, looking at quarterly revenue stream, profit margins, and so on. One of the first things that we ever require while building a report is actually a date table. That is the first thing you should build prior to creating any other or bringing any other data into the report. As you can see here, here is a date table. Date tables are really easy to create. In fact, you can go to several forums, grab a date table SQL M code, take that information and bring it into the advanced editor of transform data in the Power BI desktop application, input the M code, and it'll actually create a whole date table. You can also be specific in the years that you're interested in. So within this video, we're going to focus specifically on the date table creation and why it matters. So just as I said, you typically can get date tables from forums across the internet. In this video, I will also provide you the M code that can be seen in the description. That M code can be copied and pasted into any various Power BI report. I also will give you understanding of how to create date ranges within the M code so you can look at building reports from the 90s all the way to today's date or even into the future. So with that being said, I'm going to now move over to the actual M code. So you can see here, here's a date table. This is considered the table view of Power BI desktop. We have date, date key, year, quarter, month number, day, and then month. The reason why we separate all these values so you can create date hierarchies, meaning that you can create a scattered plot chart, provide a date hierarchy where you can show sales over a duration of periods that you can select via so many years, over so many quarters, or over so many months. So really it helps with macro level reporting. So now I'm going to select home in the ribbon. Once I select home, we're going to select transform data. This will take us to the well-known Power Query editor. When we select this, it'll take you to a new table. When you're creating a report, you won't see any queries available because you haven't created anything. So in this case, I'm going to show you the steps needed to create that query. When in Power Query, you can actually go to the queries ribbon here, or I should say column, right click, and select new query. What will happen is a new query will populate almost like a blank table and it will typically say query 1 or query 2. You can then select that query by just left clicking it. In this case, let's just say we named our new query date table. We can create a name for it if we want, but in your case, you'll just select query 1. In this case, mine just says date table. We'll then go and select advanced editor. The advanced editor is in the home section of the ribbon. Select advanced editor, and then you'll see this massive encode. You won't have anything. You'll actually have just a simple let and then end statement. They'll be complete blanks. So understand the M code that I'm providing in the description will actually be what's populated in here. There's some information that you can easily see how we can create date ranges. It's actually quite obvious. In the first section of the M code, we have something called config. This is the configuration of the M code. You're creating a start date function and an end date function. Within the start date, you can provide a date. In this case, I select January 1st of 2020. My end date is December 31st of 2030. This is the case if we want to look at projections of sales. We may want to extend our dates into 2030. Please note that your date table will restrict all different information from your other tables that you want to share. For instance, if you have sales data that's being reported in 2036, that sales data won't appear because our date table is restricting all the way to 2030. So please understand the data that you want to share or represent in your reports needs to be in the same time frame of what's provided in the start date and end date function of your date table. So in this case, 2020 to 2030. There's a few other columns in here that are good to know. Add year, add quarter, add month number, month name, and add day. The add is just a functional name saying we're adding the column. The actual name of the column is projected here in the quotations: year, quarter, month number, month, and day. We also have date key. Not too important for you at the moment in terms of reporting, but it's a nice to have and we can talk about it later in future videos. Once we've added the M code, we want to say done. This will then create a whole date table listing every single day between our date range. So you can see here in our date column we have 1-1, 1-2, 1-3. We also have lists of the year it's related to and the quarter. The year and the quarter and the month are important to us because that will create a date hierarchy function, which I'll show momentarily. Now, in this case, I've also added two other queries. You don't have to add queries in here. Specifically what I mean in here, I'm talking about Power Query Editor. So I'm going to exit out now. When we want to add specific information regarding to sales or other reporting data, we actually want to go and select information and bring it into Power BI via the Get Data function. Get Data is just another way of grabbing the information that I need or importing the data that I need to create a report. Power BI is very diverse in what it can pull. It can pull Excel workbooks, semantic models, data flows, Dataverse, SQL servers. You can also pull information from the web, meaning we can literally put in a web address, and if there's a table within the web address when it opens, it will grab that information, tableize it the best it can, and then obviously provide you a draft format that we can then bring in and import into the report itself. For typical reports that are very simple, like we're doing, we're grabbing information typically from a CSV file or XLSX, meaning Excel files. This is the case we would say Excel workbook. When we select Excel workbook, it actually will take you to your file explorer. Basically looking within your directory of where you want to pull your Excel file from. Sometimes we work in digital workspaces that are located in SharePoints. If that's the case, we actually want to go to the Excel file itself in the SharePoint, select Get Info within the Options setting, grab the URL link, and then put it within. When we select Web, you'll get a URL address that we input the link. Now, there are some kinks in that. We actually have to delete some information, typically from SharePoint links. It's actually the web and the question mark at the end of your URL that you'll need to delete, but we'll go over that information later on. So now we've concluded that we're going to use the Excel workbook data source. When we select that, we'll bring over files. In this case, the example, I provide hat sales and shoe sales. Yes, it's very rudimentary data. May not relate to many businesses specifically what this video is trying to support, but it's simple data that we can use. So once we selected that, we've incorporated hat sales and shoe sales. We now can see what those particular data tables will look like in Power BI. You'll actually notice that they look almost like exact replicas of what's in Excel. That's a nice thing of having a fully Microsoft or a full Microsoft linked program. So anything that's going to be in Excel will typically transfer over pretty well into Power BI. You can see here we have a date, we have category, product, units, unit price, and sales amount. This is something very simple, but can show a good report. The reason why it's important we have a date column is because we have to create a relation between the data table for hat sales and shoe sales to the date table. There has to be in data modeling a commonality between various tables if you want to pull information and group things together of various sorts. Meaning if I want to see my hat sales and shoe sales under one visual, maybe they're legended out between a light blue and a dark blue sales amount, year over year or month over month. We couldn't do that under one date column of the hat sales or one date column of the shoe sales because they're not connected. You have to find commonality. So what we would actually do is we would do linkage. If we go to the model view here, we actually see hat sales, shoe sales, and a date table. Now, please ignore the date hierarchy highlighted. We'll go over that in a minute. These three data tables are related through the date field located here. It's a very simple way to connect fields. You actually just left click, drag, and drop. Drag it and drop over the field that you're interested in. So in this case, the date table, date field, has now been linked to hat sales date. Please notice that their cardinality is also in both directions, and it's both. So you'll see here there's already a relationship between the columns. What you'll see is this error code will be removed because there is no relationship when you're building this as of yet. Your cardinality will be 1-to-1, and your cross-filter direction will be both. Cardinality meaning 1-to-1 means that there's a 1-to-1 match. There's one date in the date field for the date table, and there's a similar date and a one date value in your hat sales and shoe sales, meaning there's not many date fields that are the same. There's not tons of January 1st, 2020. There's only one January 1st, 2020 in the date table. There's only one January 1st in your hat sales and in your shoe sales. So it's a 1-to-1. If it was different and there was multiples of January 1st, either within the date table or within your shoe sales or hat sales, it'd be a 1-to-many cardinality. Not a big deal. If that is the case, while you're building up your new report, please advise that that's no impact to your report. Generally, you won't see any impacts at all. What's important is your cross-filter direction. This makes it so that certain data tables filter other data tables. Meaning if I was going to select shoe sales and I want to look at my type of hat, that may filter information on another data table that may be connected. But we want to make sure that both can filter each other. Meaning if I were to select information and do a filter on one data set, that would create a filter that's connected to another. And you can go vice versa. So we typically try to have a cross-filter direction that is both. Again, this is the same exact process for shoe sales. Now everything has a relation. Our hat sales has a relation to the date table as well as our shoe sales. Our hat sales and our shoe sales are not related. The only connection that they have is a relation to the date table, and that is it. But that's good because we want to have separation in certain data sets. These really aren't or should not be connected because it's two different sales types and two different product lines. Once we move into this duration, we want to create a date hierarchy. Every single date table, you want to create a date hierarchy. The way to do this is you actually go into Model View, and then you'll go to these three dots, and there's a option to create hierarchy. When you create your hierarchy, it will legitimately just create this field right here. However, the hierarchy system will ask you to select a column to add. These will be blank. You'll have nothing selected. If you were just to add a date hierarchy and then close out, it would just act like a date column, and there would be no hierarchy method related to the date. So you couldn't show months or quarters or year over year in your visuals. And I'll talk about how that's important. But first, we have to select a column to add. In this case, per the M code I'm providing you, there are 4 fields that you should select: year, quarter, month, and day. With those fields selected, you'll be able to do a hierarchy system of sales for your shoe sales and your hat sales on a quarterly basis or a month or a year-over-year basis. You can do summations, you can do average, you can do deviations as well. With that selected, we'll move over to the actual report view. Now the report that I'm showing is very simple, but it's also already set up. And I know that can be confusing for those who are just new to this. So we're kind of going to go over the steps of what's important. When creating a visual, Power BI is very simple in a drag and drop method for creation. You're going to have a list of visualizations over here. And I'll kind of talk about the different visualizations and their perks, and maybe not so much perks. So we have stack bar charts, meaning that we have cumulative values stacking along the y-axis. And then we have a flip to a stack column chart. We have cluster charts. We also have 100% stack bar charts and 100% stack column charts. These are great if we want to show maybe completion status and incompletion status on different items like incorporations for big retrofits for car programs or airplanes. If we want to show something like stack column charts, that's usually looking at summation of revenue or profit month over month. We don't have 100% status to work to, but we want to see what is the cumulative value month over month in relation to other months. We also have things like stacked area charts. We also have line and stack column charts. We like to use stack column charts or line and stack column charts to kind of show month over month trends. You can easily add trend lines to these to kind of do LEs. You also can use it to understand what your current rate is if you're looking at projections. Next, we have scattered charts. This is typically used for engineering. We look at this to validate maybe patterns and failures or patterns in the data to create an understanding for root cause analysis. You have pie charts. We also have donut charts, which is just a cooler version of a pie chart. Other information here we'll get into later on. We also have maps that are connected to Google, which you can provide locations, which then can provide big map snapshots of maybe where your storage locations are, or maybe where a unit is transferring equipment that you want to keep track of. In this case, you can see here the column or the visual that we selected was the clustered column chart. This is typical for sales or completion counts for your business. In this case, you'll notice here that a few fields pop up that we have to fill in to create the visual. We have an x-axis, we have a y-axis, we also have legends and small multiples and tooltips. I'll start from the bottom. What is a tooltip? A tooltip is typically additional data that you'll add. That typically when a user will hover over the data set, it'll give additional information about what's being shown. Sometimes we give information of the customer that's making the number of purchases. Who's your highest consumer? Maybe a tooltip that you put in there based on the data that you have available in your table and that you can potentially show as a tooltip. Small multiples will go on later on. Legend is exactly what you would see in Excel. Legends is something that we want to use to separate the data. So for instance, if we have hat sales, but we have different types of hats for sale. Maybe it's a Titleist hat, maybe it's a tailor-made hat, maybe it's a Callaway hat. We use legends to differentiate the sales month over month, so it's clear and concise, usually for macro level reports. Y-axis, it's very simple. This is looking at information that we want to show at a y-axis point. Typically, we can show sales or number of actions performed. And then the x-axis, which in this case is our date. So most of the time, I always see dates as that option. You can add product line as your x-axis, so all your various products, and show their sales as the y-axis. But typically, we like to use the x-axis as a date function. In this case, we go to the date table. And you would assume we use date. Wrong, because we want to focus on a date hierarchy. We want a macro level report that shows month over month sales, quarter over quarter, or year over year. A date function won't do that, but a date hierarchy will. So we're going to take that date and we're going to left click it and we're going to drag and then drop it here. Now you have the date table hierarchy. Typically when you pull over the date table hierarchy, you're going to be given various fields. You're going to show year, quarter, month, day. You can see here, this is way too much data for this visual. So we'll remove day. Now we're looking at year, quarter, and month. Now in this case, I may just be interested in showing sales for 2025, but I have a whole history report from 2020 to 2030. So in this case, I'd say, if I'm looking at just the year 2025, I'm probably just interested in my quarter. And then my year, which can clearly label the months that are related. So we have 2025 April, 2025 January, May, June, September, October, March, July, February, August, November, and December. Now you'll notice our months are all over the place. And this is typical. In the next video, I'll show you how we can organize the months so they'll be sequential to what we see in the standard calendar year. But what we're seeing right now is we actually see every single sale cumulative for our hat sales as well as our shoe sales. And we see it month over month. Now, the reason why we're only seeing 2025 is because I've added a filter. So you'll see here every field that you add to the data table will also be plotted over here into the filters on this visual. Since we selected year as a part of our hierarchy, year is a filter that we can perform on the visual. So if I go here, select this down arrow, you'll have an option for basic filtering or advanced filtering. Select basic filtering if you're new, because it's just a little bit easier to work with. You'll see here, these are all the years that live in the date table. In this case, we'll select 2025. When we select this visual will now automatically only show sales amounts for both the shoes and the hats within 2025. This is a very simple report. We can do a whole lot more. Videos will be provided later on of how we can make this visual, either one, more exciting, but two, more informative for any user that will be using this report. With that being said, please consider to review the description, try out the M code, and create your own date table as you start your new reports in Power BI. Again, we'll continue using these two Excel spreadsheets for hat sales and shoe sales to create new visuals, and we'll also potentially show map integration like we talked about and different KPI metrics to make this useful for your team. Thank you.